Have you ever longed so deeply for a message, a call, a sign, only to face silence? What if I told you that the silence itself is your own creation, and that within you lies the power to end it this very moment? This is not fantasy. This is the law of assumption, the power that ends no contact and draws your specific person back into your world, as surely as night gives way to dawn. And my friends, the end of no contact is not achieved by reaching outward. It is achieved by turning inward. You are not a beggar waiting for love to appear. You are the creator of it. The world reflects only one thing: your state of being. When you imagine your specific person reaching out, when you feel the warmth of their voice, the softness of their presence, that imaginal act is the cause, and the outer event is the effect. You need not lift a finger, for the law of attraction is but the shadow of a deeper truth. Imagination creates reality. I recall a time in my own life when one whom I dearly loved had turned away. Days of silence, months of distance. Every letter unanswered, every thought of reconciliation met only with emptiness. One evening I sat quietly and asked myself, what am I imagining right now? And I saw that I was imagining absence, rejection, loneliness. So I did the only thing I could do. I changed the scene within me. In my mind's eye, I saw that person smiling, speaking my name with affection. I felt the joy of reunion, so real that tears came. I lived in that end, as though it were already true. 3 days later, without any physical effort, a letter arrived, not of sorrow, but of warmth, love, and apology. That is the law. Not a chance, not coincidence, but consciousness expressing itself. Do not concern yourself with how or when. The bridge of incidents will unfold naturally. Your task is singular: to dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. When you assume that the no contact is already ended, and persist in that assumption, the outer world must conform to it. You are not to chase, not to plead, but to command in consciousness. Every text, every call, every reconciliation you seek begins in the stillness of imagination. Let your prayer be an act of inner certainty. It is done. My specific person and I are joyfully united now. Hold that vision, feel it as real, and the invisible will soon harden into fact. When you fully grasp that your specific person exists within your consciousness, and that the law of attraction is merely the echo of your imagination, you will cease waiting and begin creating. In that moment, no contact ends. Not because they changed, but because you did. You must first come to understand that imagination is not some idle daydream or fantasy of the mind. It is the very substance of creation itself, the living power through which every event, every circumstance, and every relationship in your world takes form. You think you are reacting to a world outside of you, but the truth is that you are forever meeting yourself in the garments of circumstance. The person you call a stranger, the friend who calls you, the message that arrives, the silence that lingers, all of it is the mirror of your own imaginal activity. The world is imagination made visible, and until you grasp this truth, you will wander in shadows believing that things happen to you rather than through you. Imagination creates reality, and reality obeys imagination as night follows day. There is no distance between the imaginal act and its manifestation except the measure of your own faith. When you imagine a thing and persist in the feeling that it is already true, you set in motion the unseen currents of the universe. These invisible currents arrange themselves as people, events, and circumstances to bring about the fulfillment of your inner vision. The outer world is simply a delayed echo of the inner act. You cannot sow one seed in imagination and reap another in fact. Every imaginal act is a seed that must unfold according to its own kind. Most people believe imagination is weak and reality is strong. Yet the reverse is true. Reality is the fading shadow, imagination is the eternal cause. Look closely at your life, and you will see the fingerprints of your own inner conversations upon it. You may say, I never imagined this sorrow or that disappointment, but listen carefully to the secret tone of your heart. Perhaps you imagined being unwanted, forgotten, or alone. Perhaps you repeated silently, they never call, they never care. Those unguarded words, those feelings carried in the quiet hours, are creative acts. The world does not judge the goodness or evil of your imaginal scenes. It simply reproduces them faithfully. To educate yourself in this law is to take responsibility for creation. It is to cease blaming fate, chance, or the will of another. Nothing comes uninvited into your experience. The invitation is always sent by thought and sealed with feeling. When you imagine lovingly, lovingly you reap. When you imagine fearfully, fear will shape itself into form. This is not punishment, it is precision. The law of imagination is exact, impartial, and utterly dependable. Consider what happens when you dwell upon the absence of the one you love. You picture their silence, you feel the emptiness of waiting, you replay scenes of rejection. You are writing, scene by scene, the script of continued separation. Then you wonder why the phone remains silent. But if instead, you dare to step into the scene that would follow reunion, if you hear their voice in your imagination and feel the joy of harmony restored, you have planted a new seed. The world, obedient to its invisible author, must bring forth fruit after that image. It may come through a letter, a chance meeting, or a message delivered by another. The how is never your concern. The imaginal act has already determined the path. To apply this law consciously, you must train the mind to accept imagination as fact. When you close your eyes and construct the scene of your desire, you are entering the workshop of eternity. There you mold substance with thought and clothe it with emotion. The more vivid the feeling, the swifter the manifestation. Feeling is the secret because it is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. Thought without feeling is sterile, but thought felt with conviction becomes flesh. You do not imagine things into being by will but by surrender. Surrender to the reality of the unseen. You may ask, how can I know that imagination truly creates? Test it. Choose something small, something that carries no tension of effort. Imagine, for instance, receiving a friendly message from someone you have not heard from in days. See it in your mind, feel the joy of it, give thanks that it is done. Then drop it from your conscious thought and trust that it is so. In a short while, the outer world will rearrange itself, and you will receive your evidence. Each test builds your confidence, and confidence becomes faith. Faith is simply imagination made sure. Education in this law is not learned from books alone. It is learned through practice. As you begin to imagine consciously, you will notice how swiftly life responds. You will also notice how old patterns attempt to return. The habit of doubt, the habit of worry. These are but shadows of your former ignorance. Do not fight them, simply turn again to the inner scene you prefer and rest in its feeling. Persist until the new assumption feels natural, until it requires no effort to believe it true. When it feels natural, creation is complete, and the result must appear. The great mistake is to wait for the outer change before accepting the inner one. The moment you imagine, the reality is already born. It is unseen by others, but not unreal. All things exist first in imagination. The house is finished before the bricks are laid. The melody is complete before the first note is played. Likewise, reconciliation exists the instant you conceive it in love. Time merely unfolds the invisible into visibility. So when you wish to end separation, to end any form of silence or lack, begin not with action but with assumption. Sit quietly and imagine the world as it would be if your desire were already realized. Feel the relief, the joy, the gratitude of fulfillment. Let that emotion saturate your being until it replaces every trace of doubt. In that moment, you have changed the cause, and the effect must follow. You will discover that people appear in your life as though compelled by unseen hands. Conversations turn in your favor, opportunities open. All because you dared to imagine differently. To live this way is to awaken from the dream of limitation. You are not a victim of chance, but a creator by right of consciousness. Every image you entertain in feeling becomes a fact in time. Train yourself to imagine only that which uplifts, heals, and unites. Let your inner speech be full of love and assurance, for it will echo through the corridors of reality and return to you multiplied. This is education in the truest sense. Learning to think from the end, to feel from the wish fulfilled, and to know that imagination creates reality unfailingly, eternally, and perfectly. To live in the end is to accept, in consciousness, the reality of your desire before the senses can confirm it. It is to dwell in the state of the wish fulfilled, and to make it so natural that no outer circumstance can shake it from you. The world teaches you to believe what you can see, to trust only the evidence of your eyes and ears, but the law of being is reversed. You must first believe, and then you will see. Living in the end is the art of assuming the feeling of fulfillment and allowing that feeling to mold the substance of reality. It is not an act of pretending, it is the act of knowing that imagination and reality are one, differing only in degree, not in kind. When one lives in the end, he no longer asks if his desire will come to pass. He walks as though it already has. He speaks from the fulfilled state, not toward it. This inner shift is subtle but powerful. It moves you from wanting to being, from hoping to knowing. In that inner knowing lies creative power. The outer world has no choice but to rearrange itself around your assumption, for the world is a mirror reflecting your inner state. Think of a seed buried in the earth. The seed does not strive or wonder if it will become a tree. It holds within itself the pattern of fulfillment. Once planted, it simply unfolds according to its nature. The soil, the rain, the sun, all these are drawn into harmony by the seed's inherent conviction of life. So it is with your imagination. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you plant the seed of that state in the fertile ground of consciousness. Every person, event, and circumstance required for its fulfillment will appear, drawn as if by unseen magnetism, for creation follows conviction as surely as the harvest follows the seed. Many confuse living in the end with mere visualization, but the two are worlds apart. To visualize is to observe a picture. To live in the end is to enter the picture and breathe within it. You do not stand apart from the scene of your desire, you become a living participant in it. Feel what you would feel if it were true. Smell the air of that new reality, hear the sounds that belong to it, and let every sense contribute to the conviction that it is now. The body may still be seated in one place, but consciousness has already moved. That movement of awareness is creation itself. This education is not to be learned in one sitting. It must be practiced daily, in quiet moments, and in the midst of activity. When faced with delay, you do not revert to doubt. You return inward to the feeling of completion. When challenged by appearances, you remind yourself that appearances are only shadows cast by past states. You remain loyal to the unseen reality within. That loyalty is faith, and faith is the path by which the invisible becomes visible. When you live in the end, you cease begging life for favors. You stop looking for signs because you understand that you are the sign. Every moment spent in the fulfilled state radiates a vibration that calls forth its likeness. The people around you begin to echo your assumption without knowing why. You speak differently, move differently, carry an unspoken certainty that changes the very air about you. This is not arrogance, it is quiet mastery, the recognition that consciousness, not effort, creates. Let us take an example. Suppose you wish to reconcile with the one you love, yet days and weeks of silence have passed. The natural mind wants to chase, to plead, to prove its worth. But such actions come from the state of lack, and lack only breeds more lack. Living in the end demands that you abandon that old identity. You close your eyes and step into the scene that implies union. Perhaps you imagine the familiar sound of their voice saying, "It's so good to hear from you again." You feel the warmth of affection, the peace of harmony restored. You dwell in that feeling until it becomes so real that you can no longer doubt it. When you open your eyes, the physical world may look unchanged, but something within has shifted. The bridge of events will begin to form, and the outer reflection must conform to the inner certainty. Do not be concerned with time. The moment you live in the end, creation is finished. Time is only the instrument through which the invisible becomes seen. To demand instant results is to reveal disbelief in the law. Instead, rest in the assurance that what you have imagined already exists in its fullness, unseen by the senses but fully real in the dimension of imagination. The patient gardener does not dig up the seed to see if it grows. He waters it and lets the law work. So too must you water your assumption with gratitude and silence. The greatest obstacle to living in the end is habit. The mind is accustomed to measuring life by evidence, to looking outward for proof. But when you train yourself to feel the wish fulfilled before it manifests, You reverse the order of creation. You become the cause, not the effect. Every time you return to the inner state of accomplishment, you strengthen that cause until it becomes the only natural state left in you. Then the outer change arrives effortlessly, as though it had always been so. In truth, you are always living in some end. You are forever imagining from one state or another, either from the fulfillment of your desire or from its absence. The law does not rest. Therefore, choose your end wisely. Refuse to dwell in what you fear or resent. Instead, fix your mind on what you love, what you desire, what you know to be beautiful and true. Let the feeling of having it now become your dwelling place, and you will watch the world rearrange itself to match it. Living in the end is not a trick to manipulate others. It is the revelation that everything is self-persuasion. As you persuade yourself of a new state, life mirrors it back faithfully. No one is left out of this law. Whether for wealth, health, love, or peace, the process is the same. You imagine the end, feel it as real, and rest in that assurance. The world must answer, for it is only consciousness made visible. When you understand this, you stop chasing shadows and begin shaping light. You live from the end, and the end lives through you, unfolding its perfection in the seen world, just as it was conceived in the unseen. The law of assumption is the eternal principle by which all things are made. It declares that what you assume to be true becomes true for you, and the world obediently mirrors that assumption until you are surrounded by its evidence. It is not fate, nor luck, nor the actions of others that determine the course of your life, but the quiet certainty with which you hold an idea within yourself. Every belief, every conviction, every inner feeling of being something or having something is an assumption, and these assumptions, whether conscious or unconscious, weave the tapestry of your existence. You are never without the power to create, for the creative act is the simple art of assuming a state of consciousness and persisting in it until it feels natural. The moment a feeling of certainty replaces the feeling of hope, the unseen world begins to stir. Circumstances, people, and events are drawn like threads to form the pattern you have accepted inwardly. The law of assumption works not by struggle but by faith. It does not ask for effort but for conviction. You need not labor to make things happen. You must rest in the knowing that they already have. To assume is to claim inwardly that which outwardly seems absent. When you close your eyes and declare within yourself, "It is done," you shift the center of your awareness from desire to fulfillment. The law knows no distance, no obstacle, no delay. The instant you adopt the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the creation is complete in the unseen. Time is only the servant that brings into visibility what you have already accepted as real. If you persist in the assumption, the outer world must reflect it. If you waver, the reflection wavers too. Understand that assumption is not mere wishing. Wishing implies separation. Assumption implies unity. When you wish, you confess that you do not have. When you assume, you acknowledge that you are and possess already in consciousness. The difference may appear subtle, but it is the difference between failure and fulfillment. The wish looks toward the future. The assumption lives in the present moment, knowing that the thing desired already exists in a higher dimension of being. In your daily life, you are constantly assuming. You assume the role you play, the relationships you hold, the limitations you endure. These assumptions, made often without awareness, bind you to repetitive patterns. To change your life, you must change the assumption from which you live. If you believe that others ignore you, you will find endless confirmation of that belief. If you assume that love surrounds you, life will present you with evidence of affection and kindness. The outer is the mirror, and the assumption is the face before it. No one else has power over you unless you assume that they do. Consider the example of someone desiring reconciliation with a loved one. The ordinary mind says, "I will wait until they contact me." But the law of assumption teaches that waiting keeps the state of separation alive. The creative act begins when the individual assumes inwardly that the relationship is already healed. He sees the other smiling, hears their words of affection, feels the warmth of union restored. Though nothing in the outer world has changed, within himself he has moved into a new reality. That inner movement is all that is required. For the world outside must rearrange itself to reflect the new assumption. Letters are written, calls are made, chance meetings occur, all to fulfill what consciousness has already accepted as true. This law operates with mathematical precision. It cannot be deceived by words or appearances. You may say, "I believe," while inwardly you hold doubt, and the law responds not to your words, but to your feeling. It is the feeling that creates. Feeling is the secret doorway through which the assumption enters reality. The intensity of your emotion, the clarity of your vision, and the steadiness of your faith together determine the speed of manifestation. When you assume with genuine conviction, the thing desired rushes toward you, for it recognizes its likeness in your vibration. To live by this law requires discipline of mind. You must learn to withdraw attention from the world of effects and place it upon the world of cause. The moment you observe a circumstance you dislike, you must remind yourself that it is only the outpicturing of a former assumption. You cannot change it by fighting or resenting it. You change it only by assuming a new state. The mind that remains fixed on the end, unshaken by appearances, becomes the master of reality. The wise student practices assumption not only for grand desires, but in the smallest details of life. He assumes success before he acts, peace before he speaks, harmony before he meets another. In this way, his entire being becomes aligned with the state of fulfillment, and fulfillment follows him like a shadow. This is not arrogance. It is the humble recognition that consciousness is the one and only reality. Many fail because they attempt to assume mechanically, repeating words without conviction. They forget that assumption must be felt. You must feel the truth of your desire until it burns in you like an accomplished fact. When you can say inwardly, "I am already what I want to be," and feel no conflict, you have entered the creative state. The world will soon confirm your claim, for the law cannot return void. Education in this principle transforms the whole outlook of life. Instead of being tossed by events, you learn to originate them. You cease blaming others, for you see that every encounter is drawn by your assumption of self. You recognize that the universe is not against you but responding to you. Each assumption becomes a command, spoken not to men but to the substance of reality itself. Let your assumptions, then, be noble. Assume only that which uplifts, heals, and blesses. Assume that you are loved, guided, and supported by the unseen power within you. Assume that every door opens, every relationship harmonizes, every need is already met. Live in these assumptions until they feel natural, and they will crystallize into facts before your eyes. The law of assumption is not partial to wealth or poverty, to joy or sorrow. It only gives form to what you hold as real. The responsibility and the glory are both yours. When you master assumption, you master creation, for the two are one. No contact ends within, not without. The silence you experience from another is not a decision made by them, but a reflection of the quiet conversation you have been holding within yourself. Every absence, every delay, every moment of being ignored is the outer echo of an inner assumption you have not yet transformed. You imagine yourself to be unwanted, to be waiting, to be unheard, and life, obedient to its law, gives you proof of that inner state. The separation you see in the world is the separation you have felt in consciousness. Nothing external has power until you endow it with meaning, and the meaning always begins in the unseen world of thought and feeling. The secret is not to force communication in the outer world, but to establish union in the inner one. The world is consciousness objectified. When you hold within you the certainty of connection, the bond must reveal itself outwardly. To believe that another has the power to withhold affection or contact from you is to hand your creative authority to illusion. The moment you reclaim it and assume inwardly that harmony already exists, the illusion must dissolve. The cause is not found in the other person's will, but in the pattern of thought that you have consented to feel real. Change the pattern, and the result must change. Imagine for a moment that you are standing before a mirror. The reflection frowns, and you, unaware of your power, plead with the reflection to smile. You beg, you reason, you wait. But the image remains unmoved. Only when you lift the corners of your own mouth does the reflection obey. So it is with the world. Others cannot smile upon you until you have smiled within yourself. When you dwell upon absence, you project absence. When you dwell upon union, you project union. The mirror of life responds unfailingly to the inner movement of consciousness. To end no contact, you must begin to rewrite the inner dialogue you have been repeating. Every silent complaint, every mental question, why haven't they called? Do they still care? Is a creative act in the negative. These thoughts maintain the state of separation, for they affirm that contact has not yet occurred. Replace them with the speech of fulfillment. Hear within your imagination the sound of their voice speaking with affection. Feel the warmth of their presence. Assume the reality of reunion so completely that the outer world cannot contradict it. When this inner communication becomes natural, the outer contact will arise without effort. This is not self-deception, it is education in the true structure of reality. Consciousness is the only cause, and what you hold as real within it becomes the stage upon which your life plays out. The silence between you and another is the materialized form of an unseen belief. The instant you change that belief, the scene begins to rearrange. There may appear to be delays, but they are not delays in truth. Only the slow adjustment of the visible to match the invisible. You cannot rush the reflection. You can only remain faithful to the new image until it is complete. The mind trained in outer causation will rebel against this idea. It will say, but they must choose to contact me. They have their own free will. Yet the will of another is but a part of the same divine imagination that you yourself are expressing. There is only one creative power appearing as many, and what you assume concerning another is felt by them subconsciously. Every thought you hold is a vibration sent forth into the unified field of mind, and all who are connected to you respond in kind. When you think of someone with love, that love moves through the invisible current between you and awakens a corresponding feeling within them. You may not see the movement immediately, but it is happening nonetheless. This law has nothing to do with manipulation or control. It is not about bending another's will to yours, but about harmonizing with the truth that already exists beyond appearance. The truth is that you and the one you love are not truly divided. Separation exists only in sense perception. In the realm of consciousness, there is one life, one spirit, one imagination expressing through all. When you recognize this unity and assume it as real, the seeming distance between you dissolves. You begin to feel that they are near, that communication is natural, that affection flows freely. And because consciousness is the cause, this inner realization produces its likeness in the world of form. To practice this requires steadiness. The senses will continue to report silence for a time, and the old habit of doubt will whisper that nothing is changing. But do not believe the whisper. Each time you return to the feeling of union, you are redrawing the map of reality. Every act of inner assumption builds momentum until it overtakes the old pattern completely. Then the outer event arrives, not as a miracle, but as the most natural thing in the world. The phone rings, the message appears, the meeting occurs, and you realize that the silence was never real. It was only the shadow cast by an old state of mind. Education in this law begins with observation. Watch your thoughts during moments of waiting. Notice how often they dwell in lack. Notice the subtle feeling of being ignored or unworthy that lingers behind the desire for contact. Do not condemn yourself for these feelings, but recognize them as instructions you have been sending to the creative power within. Then, consciously choose new instructions. Replace the sense of waiting with the sense of having. Instead of, "Why haven't I heard from them?" say inwardly, "How wonderful it is to feel this closeness again." Speak the words of fulfillment as if the world were already echoing them. You will discover that when the inner dialogue changes, the energy between you and the other transforms. The tension fades, the anxiety disappears. You feel calm, complete, and loved. In that peace, creation ripens. The silence breaks not because you forced it to, but because you no longer believed in it. The law responds to your faith in the unseen, not to your struggle in the seen. The outer world, being only effect, must bow to the cause. To end no contact, therefore, is to end the belief in separation. The work is done entirely in consciousness. You need not send a message or take a step in the physical world until it feels natural to do so. The act of imagination precedes every outer action. Once the state of union feels real within you, all external motion will unfold with ease and grace. The conversation, the meeting, the reconciliation, these are simply the outer confirmations of the harmony you have already established within. To persist in the vision even when the senses deny it is the highest form of faith. It is the ability to remain inwardly unmoved while the outer world screams the opposite of your desire. The untrained mind is easily swayed by plant a seed in the garden of imagination. That seed will grow, but like any seed, it requires consistent nourishment. You cannot plant it one night and uproot it the next to see if it has taken root. The gardener who constantly digs in the soil destroys his own crop. So it is with your desire. You must tend to it in faith, even when no green shoot appears above the ground. Every moment you persist in the inner vision, unseen forces are at work, rearranging the substance of your world. This persistence is not stubborn willpower. It is quiet confidence. It is not a struggle against the senses, but a refusal to be hypnotized by them. You acknowledge what the outer world shows, but you deny its finality. You understand that the scene before your eyes is merely the shell of an old belief, now fading. You no longer react with despair or impatience. You respond with knowing. You return again and again to the imaginal act where your desire is already realized. You dwell in that end until it feels natural, until the joy of fulfillment outweighs the evidence of delay. The senses belong to the past. Imagination belongs to the future made present. When you allow yourself to be guided by sight alone, you live as an effect. When you are guided by inner vision, you live as a cause. The outer world cannot resist a mind that persists. Every time you affirm your assumption in feeling, you reinforce its reality. You build a momentum of conviction so strong that the outer reflection must conform. The invisible law of life is absolute. What is assumed and sustained in consciousness must eventually objectify itself in the world of form. To educate oneself in persistence is to master patience in its truest sense. Patience is not waiting. It is resting in assurance. The impatient man waits for proof before he believes. The patient man believes before proof appears. The difference is everything. When you live in faith, time becomes your servant, not your enemy. You no longer count the days or measure progress. You know that creation is complete in the unseen, and that all you must do is remain loyal to the vision until it manifests. In the moments when doubt arises, and it will, you must not condemn yourself. Doubt is the residue of an old self, the echo of a state you have left behind. When it speaks, simply return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Recreate the inner scene vividly and emotionally. Feel its reality until doubt fades into the background. This act is your true work. Every return to the inner state is an act of persistence, and every act of persistence shortens the distance between the unseen and the seen. It is easy to hold faith when everything flows in harmony, but the true test comes when the outer world contradicts you. Perhaps the letter does not arrive, the person does not call, the opportunity seems lost. In such moments, most abandon their faith and sink back into the old state. But if you understand the law, you recognize these moments as the final resistance of the old pattern. The storm often comes just before the calm, for consciousness is shaking itself free from its former structure. If you persist, if you stand unmoved in your inner conviction, the storm will pass, and the new state will emerge clear and radiant. There is a quiet power that grows in those who persist. It is the power of inner certainty, which no circumstance can shake. When you practice returning to your fulfilled state daily, even for a few moments, you strengthen that certainty. You begin to live more by intuition than by logic, more by faith than by sight. You feel an invisible hand guiding events, a harmony weaving through every occurrence. What once seemed random begins to make sense, for you realize that all things are working together to bring your vision into form. Persistence also teaches humility. It shows that the creative process does not bend to impatience or fear. You cannot rush the unfolding of the unseen, you can only align with it. In persistence, you surrender control of the outer and take control of the inner. You cease arguing with life, cease demanding signs, and simply abide in the feeling of accomplishment. In that inner stillness, power gathers. When you no longer seek results but rest in knowing that they are assured, you have mastered the art of faith. There will come a moment when the outer world begins to shift. You may notice small coincidences, unexpected meetings, fragments of your vision appearing in subtle ways. These are not accidents, they are the first signs of manifestation. Yet even then, you must not grow anxious or grasping. Continue to persist gently, calmly, as though nothing were missing. Do not disturb the process by excitement or fear. The fruit ripens naturally when left undisturbed. You have already created. Now allow life to deliver. Persistence is not about time, it is about intensity. A single moment of absolute conviction can outweigh weeks of half-belief. When your feeling of reality is strong enough, manifestation can occur instantly. But to reach such conviction, one must train the mind to remain faithful despite appearances. This training is the education of consciousness, the practice of remembering that the unseen is the only cause, and that what the senses report is but a delayed photograph of a former state. To persist is to stand in the truth of your imagination as the only reality. It is to keep the inner flame alive when the outer winds blow. It is to walk by faith through the valley of contradiction, knowing that the summit of fulfillment already exists. Each time you return to your vision, each time you feel its reality despite denial, you advance closer to the visible expression of your desire. The outer world has no power over the one who persists. For such a one, every appearance is but an illusion waiting to be rewritten, and every silence is but the pause before the song of fulfillment begins. To detach from time is to free yourself from the greatest illusion that binds the mind. Time is the measure of change in space, yet consciousness itself is outside of time. What you call the past and future exist only as states within you. Every possible event already exists in the eternal now, waiting for you to occupy it. When you desire something and imagine it as though it will come to pass someday, you unknowingly cast it away from you. You place it always in the future, and the future never arrives, for it is always one step ahead of your present assumption. To manifest your desire, you must abandon the concept of waiting and assume that it is already done. The state of fulfillment exists now. You enter it not through time, but through feeling. The mind, trained by the world, measures everything by duration. It believes that manifestation must take time, that change must be gradual, that events unfold step by step. Yet, in truth, there is only one moment, one eternal present in which all creation is finished. What you call time is but the unfolding of your imaginal acts into visibility. The invisible becomes visible, the unformed takes form, and you mistake that unfolding for the passage of time. But the creation itself was completed in the instant you assumed it. The delay you perceive is only the resistance of your own doubt, the tug of old beliefs that still hold your attention in the past. When you detach from time, you cease looking for signs. You stop counting days, watching clocks, or measuring progress. You no longer ask, when? Because you know that when is always now. Every time you declare that something will happen, you are proclaiming that it is not yet real, and consciousness responds faithfully to that assumption. The more you wait, the more you remain waiting. The only escape from this circle is to live now as if the desire were already fulfilled. Feel now what you would feel if the manifestation were before your eyes. Walk now as the one who has already received. Speak now from completion, not from longing. The world will catch up to your new state, for it has no choice but to mirror the present assumption of consciousness. To educate the mind in this principle, you must train yourself to think from the end rather than of the end. Thinking of the end keeps it distant. Thinking from the end brings it here. Suppose you wish to reconcile with the one you love. If you imagine it as something that will happen soon, you are imagining separation. But if you feel now the relief and joy of reunion, if you rest in the certainty that it is already done, you have detached from time. The senses may report silence, the calendar may turn, but inwardly you are unmoved. You dwell in the state of fulfillment, and because consciousness is the only cause, that state must externalize itself in your experience. The outer world obeys the inner vision. It is bound to follow, but it follows in its own rhythm. To detach from time is not to rush the process, but to trust it. You no longer demand instant proof, for proof already exists within. You know that what is true in imagination will become true in fact. You understand that time is the servant of faith, not its master. Faith declares, "It is done," and time merely arranges the steps by which the invisible becomes visible. To the one who lives by sight, this may seem like waiting. To the one who lives by inner knowing, it is simply watching the inevitable unfold. When you fix your awareness on the end as now accomplished, you begin to experience a deep stillness. The restlessness that once haunted you disappears, for you are no longer torn between what is and what will be. You exist in one reality, the reality of fulfillment. This stillness is the womb of creation. In it all movement begins, and from it all manifestation flows. The more you rest in that stillness, the faster the outer world aligns with your inner assumption. It may appear paradoxical, but the less you strain for results, the more swiftly they come. The moment you stop waiting, you have it. The mind often confuses detachment with indifference, but they are not the same. Indifference lacks feeling. Detachment is full of faith. Indifference says, "I don't care whether it happens," while detachment says, "It is already mine." Indifference comes from disbelief. Detachment comes from mastery. To detach from time is to rise above the realm of cause and effect, and to know that cause and effect are one. The cause is the imaginal act, the effect is its reflection in time. When you know this, you are no longer deceived by appearances. You see every delay as illusion, every obstacle as an old shadow fading. You hold to the end quietly, knowing that it must come because it already is. There is a sacred rhythm to creation that cannot be disturbed by anxiety. When you detach from time, you move in harmony with that rhythm. You cease interfering with the process. You no longer attempt to force the seed to grow. You allow the natural law to unfold, confident that it cannot fail. The gardener who plants a seed does not question whether it will sprout. He waters it, gives it light, and leaves it alone. So must you plant your assumption in the soil of imagination and then rest. The world will bring forth the harvest in perfect order. In your moments of doubt, remind yourself that you are not traveling toward your desire, you are traveling within it. You are not becoming, you are remembering. The state you seek already exists in the timeless dimension of consciousness. Your work is not to create it, but to select it and assume it as real. The moment you do, the bridge of events begins to form beneath your feet. Every step you take is guided, though you may not see the pattern until you look back. What appeared to be coincidence is revealed as perfect design, and you understand that nothing was ever out of order. Detach therefore from time. Release the habit of waiting, the anxiety of how long, the burden of when. Each time those questions arise, replace them with the declaration, "It is done." Feel the truth of that statement until it becomes your natural state of being. Live as though the end has already been achieved, for in the realm of imagination it has. The outer world will bend to your conviction. When you understand this, you will never again be a prisoner of time. You will walk in the eternal now, where all things are finished, and creation responds instantly to your inner assumption. Revision of memory is the divine art of redemption. It is the power to free yourself from the bondage of what you call the past and to rewrite it according to your desire. The majority of mankind lives imprisoned by yesterday, chained by memories they believe unchangeable. They repeat stories of pain, betrayal, rejection, and loss, not realizing that these stories are the seeds from which their present sorrow grows. What is remembered continues to reproduce itself, for imagination creates reality, and what you hold as true in memory becomes the pattern for what unfolds. But when you learn to revise, you no longer accept memory as fate. You step into the creative role and transform the past into a foundation for joy rather than suffering. The past, as you know it, is not fixed. It is a construction of consciousness, a picture preserved by feeling. Each time you recall an event, you are not looking at a photograph, you are painting it anew. The moment you remember something, you give it fresh life in imagination. If you remember it with sorrow, you create sorrow again. If you remember it with peace, you recreate peace. The world believes that what has happened cannot be altered, yet consciousness knows no such limitation. Every event exists as a potential state within imagination, and you are free to choose which version of it you will keep alive. By revising memory, you do not deny the past, you transcend it. You lift it into harmony with your present desire, and the outer world must adjust to reflect the new inner pattern. To practice revision, you must first understand that memory is simply imagination in motion. When an unpleasant memory rises, do not push it away or resist it. Welcome it as an opportunity to recreate. See the scene clearly in your mind's eye, but do not linger in its pain. Instead, gently change it. Hear the words you wish had been spoken. See the faces as they would appear in love and understanding. Feel the emotion of the new outcome as though it had truly happened. Let every detail of the scene vibrate with this new life until you can no longer feel the sting of the old. When you have done this, the past has been redeemed. It is finished. You have replaced the old seed with a new one, and its fruit will soon appear in your present experience. You may think this is impossible, for the mind of reason will say, "What is done is done." But imagination knows no past or future. It lives in the eternal now. The moment you feel the new memory as real, you have created a new cause. The physical world must respond to that cause, for it is obedient to the states of consciousness you occupy. Often, the changes are subtle. A person who once seemed hostile now treats you with kindness. A relationship once marked by distance becomes easy and harmonious. You cannot trace the logic of how it happens, for it is not logic that governs creation but feeling. The outer world simply rearranges itself to fit the new assumption that you have made regarding what once was. The true value of revision lies not only in changing circumstances, but in transforming the self. When you revise, you cleanse your inner world of resentment and fear. You stop carrying the weight of old injuries, and you stand in freedom. You no longer define yourself by the worst that has happened, but by the best that could have been. Each night, before you sleep, review the day just past. If any event, large or small, caused you distress, revise it. Replay the scene as you wish it had gone, and feel gratitude that it is now corrected. Fall asleep in that feeling. This simple nightly practice purifies consciousness. It teaches you to live not as the victim of memory, but as its master. Revision is the key to forgiveness, for to forgive truly is to forget in the creative sense. To replace the old story with a new one. Many believe forgiveness is a moral act, but in truth it is a creative one. When you hold someone in the memory of their wrong, you bind them and yourself to that state. When you revise the scene to one of understanding and love, you free both. The person who once hurt you must act differently, for they are now meeting the new version of you who has rewritten the script. The outer world cannot contradict the inner story you persist in telling. You can use this same power to transform any area of life, love, health, or success. Suppose you remember a rejection that still haunts you. Each time you recall it, you feel the pain again, and that feeling perpetuates the state of being unwanted. To change it, close your eyes and replay the event as you wish it had been. Hear the words of acceptance, feel the warmth of inclusion, and dwell in that joy until it feels completely natural. When you open your eyes, you will carry that new memory as your truth, and soon the world will confirm it. The same principle applies to failure, loss, or regret. You need not relive mistakes, you can redeem them. Every sorrow can be rewritten as triumph, every denial as blessing, every ending as renewal. This practice is not fantasy, it is education in divine law. It teaches you that there is only one moment of power, and that moment is now. You cannot change yesterday by action, but you can change it by imagination. And when you do, you change today. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between what was and what is. It accepts as real whatever you vividly imagine. Therefore, by revising the past, you reprogram the subconscious with a new pattern of experience. That new pattern becomes your future. The wheel of repetition is broken, and you step into a new cycle of creation. Through consistent use of revision, you come to understand that there is no permanent record of failure. Every error can be rewritten, every wound healed, every limitation erased. The past is not your enemy, it is raw material for transformation. Each memory, no matter how painful, holds the seed of its opposite. Within every loss lies the possibility of gain. Within every sorrow, the possibility of joy. The power to bring forth that opposite is within you. By choosing to remember differently, you give birth to a new world. In learning to revise, you learn to forgive, to create, and to live as one who knows that imagination is the true author of time. The old story fades, and a new story takes its place, radiant and whole. And when you look upon your life and see harmony where once there was conflict, peace where once there was pain, you will know that nothing was ever beyond redemption. For what you have changed in imagination, you have changed forever. Self-concept governs attraction, for the world you encounter is nothing more than the outpicturing of who you believe yourself to be. Every relationship, every opportunity, every challenge that meets you is drawn by the vibration of your self-image. You may call it fate or luck, but it is neither, it is law. Life responds to your conception of yourself with mathematical precision. You can never attract what you do not believe yourself to possess within. To think of love while feeling unworthy of it is to chase a shadow. To imagine wealth while assuming yourself poor is to scatter energy into the void. The outer world is your reflection, and no reflection can exceed its source. To educate yourself in this principle, you must first see that all attraction is self-attraction. You do not draw things to you by desire alone, but by identity. You do not get what you want, you get what you are. The words may sound simple, yet they contain the whole secret of creation. Your specific person, your success, your health, all are compelled to match the inner assumption you carry about yourself. If you believe you are chosen, you will be treated as chosen. If you believe you are ignored, life will find ways to affirm that belief. The law is exact and it makes no exceptions. Look closely at your relationships, and you will see your self-concept mirrored back in countless forms. The person who withholds affection may be reflecting your own feeling of inadequacy. The one who leaves may be echoing your silent conviction that you are not enough. This is not condemnation, it is revelation. The outer world is showing you where the work must be done, not in changing others, but in changing the image you hold of yourself. When that image is lifted, all else rises to meet it. Begin then by examining the words you speak to yourself in the privacy of your mind. Are they words of love or of rejection? Do you see yourself as desired, valued, and worthy, or as one who must earn affection? Every inner conversation is a command to the subconscious, and the subconscious executes without question. When you habitually think, "I am always forgotten," you instruct life to make it so. When you declare, "I am always loved and remembered," you call forth those who will prove it true. The world is a mirror held to your self-concept. It cannot reflect anything else. To change attraction, you must change identity. This change does not come by force, but by assumption. Close your eyes and imagine yourself as the one you wish to be. See the world responding to you from that new awareness. Feel the ease and confidence of being loved, admired, successful, or healthy. Do not wait for evidence, feel it now. The outer proof will come later, for it is the shadow of the inner state. The moment you feel the new self as real, attraction begins to shift. People, circumstances, and opportunities rearrange themselves to correspond with the new vibration you have accepted. The untrained mind believes that attraction is about pulling something external closer, but true attraction is the recognition of likeness. You do not attract what you want, you reveal what you are. The river does not chase the rain, it flows because it is its nature to do so. Likewise, you need not chase what belongs to you, you need only embody the state that possesses it. When you live as one who already has what you desire, the outer world rushes to confirm it. This is not imagination alone, it is creation in motion. Observe how self-concept shapes even the smallest interactions. When you walk into a room believing yourself confident, others feel it before you speak. When you approach someone believing yourself unworthy, they sense that too. Energy precedes words, and the world reads your inner state before you can hide it. To master attraction, therefore, is to master the feeling of self. Make it your daily task to dwell in the awareness of being loved, chosen, capable, and secure. Let every thought reinforce that truth until it becomes effortless. When you have built that inner foundation, nothing and no one can disturb it. You may ask, how can I change my self-concept when all my experiences contradict it? The answer is simple but requires discipline. Stop identifying with the old story. Each time the mind recalls evidence of failure or rejection, recognize it as the echo of a former state. Refuse to feed it. Turn instead to the new identity, the one that already possesses the qualities you desire. Imagine from that state until it feels natural. You are not denying reality, you are creating it. The old experiences lose power as you withdraw attention from them, and soon they fade into nothingness. This process is not instantaneous, for the momentum of the old self may linger, but persistence will rewrite every detail of your world. Think of yourself as the root of a great tree. If the root is nourished, the branches flourish. If the root is neglected, the tree withers. The root is your self-concept, the branches are your experiences. Water the root daily with thoughts of love, worthiness, and divine adequacy, and watch how quickly the fruits of life reflect that nourishment. When you hold the conviction, I am loved, you no longer beg for affection, you radiate it. When you believe, I am prosperous, you cease grasping for opportunity, you draw it naturally. When you affirm, I am secure, the world rearranges to show you stability. It may appear as coincidence, but there is no coincidence in consciousness. The law moves through people and events to deliver what matches your inner claim. You will find the right words spoken to you, the right doors opening, the right timing unfolding, not by accident, but by correspondence. The secret is consistency. A single moment of recognition can spark change, but sustained recognition transforms reality. Each time you choose to see yourself as worthy, you strengthen that identity. Each time you reject the old feeling of lack, you weaken its hold. Soon the new state becomes natural, effortless, and automatic. Then you no longer attract. It is simply your nature to receive. You cannot escape your self-concept, but you can recreate it. And in recreating it, you recreate the world that reflects it. Make it your practice each day to affirm quietly within, I am loved, I am chosen, I am enough. Do not say it to persuade the world, but to remind yourself of truth. Feel these words as living reality, not distant hopes. Let the feeling of being complete rise within you until it fills every corner of your consciousness. From that fullness, attraction flows without effort. The world will meet you in the image you hold of yourself, for that image is the law of your life. What you believe yourself to be, you will experience. What you know yourself to be, you will express. The world is your mirror, and self-concept is the face it reflects. All that has been said returns to one truth: life moves from within outward. The world you behold is but a living mirror of imagination, and the reflection changes only when the image changes. Every law, every teaching, every practice spoken of, the law of assumption, the power of revision, persistence, detachment from time, and the transformation of self-concept, all flow from this single principle. Consciousness is the one and only reality. You are not a traveler moving through circumstances, but the author through whom circumstances are written. The moment you accept this, you awaken from the dream of limitation and take your rightful place as the creator of your own experience. You are never waiting for love, success, or peace to come to you. You are calling them forth by the state you occupy. To imagine lovingly is to live lovingly. To persist in faith is to command the unseen. To revise is to redeem. To believe yourself worthy is to open every door. When you turn inward and assume the feeling of fulfillment, the outer world, obedient to your inner conviction, must bend and take shape according to your vision. The silence you feared becomes communication, the distance becomes reunion, and what once seemed impossible unfolds with effortless grace. This is not magic, it is law. As you live by it, you discover that there is no power outside of consciousness and no destiny apart from what you assume. Live, then, from the end. Feel now what you long to feel tomorrow. Let every thought, every word, every act spring from the awareness that your desire is already fulfilled. The journey of creation is not one of striving, but of remembering. You are, and always have been, the source of every event in your world. To know this deeply is to walk in freedom. And when you stand in that freedom, when you dare to believe that imagination creates reality, you will find that all things are possible. and that life itself joyfully obeys the one who knows.